This episode of The Tome Show is brought to you by listeners like you. Thank you for being patrons at patreon.com/The Tome Show. Welcome to The Tome, a D&D news, reviews, and interviews show, and I'm your Tome host, Jeff Greiner.
And I'm Tracy Hurley, and then this episode, number 395, we're going to grow new monstrous heads as we look at the 2024/25 version of the Monster Manual in part 18 of the series.
And joining us for this episode is the Hobgoblin of the Tome Show. Brandis Stoddard comes to us from Dimension 20, Worlds Beyond Number, and many other things, as well as being a Tome Show regular. In fact, he is a conqueror who has driven all game design competitors into oblivion.
Sure. Why not? I am a medium fae.
I'm limited on what I can call you because there's no guarantee we're gonna get past like 3 monsters. So
you're gonna get down to where it's like one person is the hobgoblin and one's the hobgoblin captain. That's
maybe we're talking Gith, but anyway, what that voice you just heard, that's the Horned Devil of the Tome Show from Nomastu. What do I know, JR? The podcast Thinker with Advantage, Jared Rascher has made his body into a living weapon with which he extracts the will of his superiors on the world.
Yep, my tail will cut you and you'll bleed. That's pretty much me.
And in case you haven't picked up on it yet, we are talking about the latest Monster Manual. D&D 5e got an update in 2024. It seems like ages ago now. And we're doing a monster by monster dive into this book. To get us started, it's disclosure time. Jared has purchased this book, and the rest of us got review copies.
Okay, so from where we left off last time, we are starting today on Hobgoblins. We have the continued and perpetual thing to mention that goblinoids are now a subspecies of Fae, which I know Brandis is excited about.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because now you can't cast sleep on your hobgoblins.
Yes, correct. Yep. All those common low-level enemies at the levels where sleep does anything no longer affected by, charm person, right? Hold person.
Okay.
Sleep you still can unless they also have sleep immunity, because sleep isn't humanoid only. But oh boy, charm person, hold person, dominate person, just about useless.
Got hamstrung.
Yeah.
So other than that, it looks to me like, with a couple of exceptions, the hobgoblins didn't go through a significant change. And by a couple of exceptions, I mean they no longer get sneak attack, but all of their attacks do more damage, so that it's fairly similar. And they're more likely to hit because instead they get pack tactics, so that's going to give them advantage on a lot of attacks.
That's true, though I do kind of feel like, you took the need for tactical play for the most part away from the tactical ones. Sure.
I mean,
because pack tactics is much lower impact, real feeling than, I get 2 more dice of damage when I hit. That's quite a lot.
That's in terms of the damage output, you're right. But I would argue pack tactics it also requires a level of tactical play. And advantage feels very satisfying. And given that the damage output is about the same either way, and by about the same, I mean that the longsword damage is doing twice as much damage, but they lost that sneak attack, which they were going to get on most of their attacks if they're playing it smart, which would have actually increased the damage by 1. The average longsword damage with sneak attack was 13, and now it's 12.
Yep.
I did notice an interesting little mechanical trick that they were pulling in terms of trying to have all of the damage output keep up with the new math, and that is they just gave a bunch of poison damage anytime the damage was low.
Sure. Yep. And they're doing sort of poison damage because Faye, that's why. I don't know there's a particular sense that they're spending a bunch of time applying poison to their blades.
Right.
Because it is just always on.
That's part of my question, is that it feels very mechanical and it doesn't tell an interesting story about hobgoblins.
Well, there's no space to tell an interesting story.
That's true.
There's only space to tell a story.
But it feels very like a very mechanical choice. Like, oh, we'll throw in some extra poison damage so that the math makes sense, because it doesn't make sense to just double the amount of damage the longbow does.
I see no reason to think that is not exactly the thought process.
No, and it's all the more clear because the highest CR of the hobgoblin stats, the warlord, has no poison damage, because the math just sort of worked on those weapons, whereas the others all have at least one thing, if not both things, doing poison damage, just so that the math can keep up.
Well, and the captain picked up a pretty good number of hit points relative to its CR, right? Picked up 19 hit points. That's not nothing at CR3. But they also, like, let's see. So Aura of Authority is, more passive than leadership, right? But leadership was very much supposed to be a way to create huge damage spike rounds, right? Because for 1 minute, the hobgoblin can utter a special command or warning whenever a non-hostile creature they can see within 30 feet of it makes an attack roll. Creature can add a d4 to its roll. So, like, I guess that winds up being about the same. It's weird because there's, instead of one creature within 30 feet, it's a 10-foot emanation originating from the hobgoblin captain. Like, okay, no, it's not the way, it is not quite what I initially read it as. Now that I'm reading it again, I misread it at first, but yeah, because for a second I thought the leadership was something more like Commander Strike. Right?
It is interesting that the Aura of Authority gives advantage on attacks, but they also, I mean, the I guess it's now a warrior that used to be just the hobgoblin stat block, has pack tactics, which is going to give a whole bunch of advantage also. Now it gives advantage on saving throws and that kind of stuff, a little extra. But Jared, we've been cutting you out. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's because I've been biting my tongue about the story part of it. But as far as like mechanics, and since that's where a lot of our story comes from at this point, I do think the hobgoblin spending something to tell somebody to get a bonus feels like they are tactical. Aura of Authority feels like we are afraid or in awe of this person. And that's a little bit different than them being tactical.
Mm-hmm. What's more, the leadership trait that or ability they had before felt like taking some good ideas from 4th edition, because it feels like the kind of thing that a warlord class character would do in 4E that was actually really interesting. Now I do get this is easier to run, and so I like, there's a part of me as the DM who's running a dozen creatures in any given combat that appreciates simplicity. But it's unfortunate to take all around, the changes to the hobgoblin feel like they were made for mechanical reasons and make the story of the hobgoblin less interesting.
I generally agree with that. I do think that the hobgoblin captain and hobgoblin warlord, because that authority effect is an emanation, it can affect more creatures. And like, as you already pointed out, the warrior gets pack tactics anyway, so this is not so much about like leading hobgoblin warriors, but about pairing well with other stat blocks outside of these 2 pages.
All of the goblins that in there in their little armor.
Goblins,
they're-
beasts,
Yeah.
monstrosities, whatever you got, right? Order of Authority
Yeah,
is nice for that.
Even using the story that we get, they're better off leading goblins and bugbears than they are other hobgoblins.
Yeah. It is weird to me that that they have figured out how to put poison on great swords, but not on long swords. But I guess that's neither here
Right.
nor there.
I mean,
at this
it
point.
just doesn't. It doesn't sort of work like that in any material way. It's just a number, guys.
I mean, to give you a preview of my story commentary, I'm sure it's part of the supernatural fey nature of hobgoblins that a small minority of them can just manifest poison on things and the rest of them can work differently because they're a manifestation of an impulse. They aren't a thing. They aren't a person.
But the warrior doesn't even do that. It does it on the bow, but not on the sword. Whereas the captain does it on both the bow and the sword, and the warlord does it on nothing. Yeah, it's.
There you are.
I'm not going to try to make narrative sense of it because it's not going to be fruitful.
I agree with that. It is not trying to work on toward that level of analysis, right?
So can we move on to homunculuses?
I would like to touch on the story just a wee bit more.
Go for it. Go for it.
So, first off, it's really interesting. In the 2014 Monster Manual, hobgoblins probably get the most glowing humanoid write-up because apparently in 2014 we didn't realize lawful evil can completely screw up everything just as badly as chaotic evil. But like they're kind of patting them on the back because they're super organized and super effective and super tactical, and they sound way better than orcs. It's really interesting reading that compared to some of the other humanoid typical enemies at that point in time.
Right. I think that, like, for me, the idea of, well, hobgoblins are ones you can kind of work with under the right circumstances. That's an idea with some years on it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely used them that way in 2003 and 2004. I was running a game right after I got out of college, and the players were encountering hobgoblins and engaging with them as not allies, but as sort of, we don't need to be enemies. We're going to wait and see if you do something before we decide that there needs to be any enmity. You're people, definitely, and we can maybe work with that.
Mm-hmm.
And for my part, I played them as, well, if you have money, we'll trade with you, no problem. Like, yeah, you're in our territory, but there's no reason for us to like risk our lives when you'll just give us the money in exchange for stuff. It's fine.
That is actually a lot of how I kind of, have run with hobgoblins before. I don't necessarily picture them having big hobgoblin city and we're going to go conquer human city next to us. I picture a lot of them being like, okay, we're going to fight with other people over territory, but also we're going to hire ourselves out as mercenaries. We're really good at being mercenaries.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like that is very much sort of where I was headed with that. If that idea had ever really cropped up. I mean, I was playing them in the Stonelands near Cormier. Like, yeah, they have a city up there, whatever. It's mostly underground. And if Cormier decides to make a thing of it, then they have a huge city full of hobgoblins to worry about. But mostly, nah.
Mm-hmm. So we already kind of touched on this with many, many other monsters. They're fey now, and there is a kind of implicit they're fey, so they're not people. But there are a few lines that kind of jump out at me in their entry. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating because they embody the primal urge to grow and spread. Now, the thing is, if they embody the primal urge to grow and spread, that's less people that are trained military that are going to be mercenaries and more I cannot help but try and conquer things.
Yeah.
And I can't help but want to read the urge to grow and spread as So this is the Fey Realms messing with humanity, right? Like, they were created to hold up a mirror to humanity and be like, look at you. Look what you, this is just like you. Check it out. You like this? No.
Yeah, right. They are the living embodiment of colonization.
Mm-hmm.
It is weird too, though, because the way they frame that primal urge to grow and spread almost sounds like, oh, everything has an urge to grow and spread. It's like, does it? But the other thing that I think drives home.
If Sam were here, he would tell us about biology and growing and spreading, I think.
But I just to drive home, even if none of these have been explicit yet, saying these aren't people, don't worry about killing them. The drive to subjugate and pillage is part of the hobgoblin's supernatural nature. It is supernatural. It is part of them.
And I feel like there's been an effort to take humanoid creatures and not try to give them species-wide alignment and whatever for all the problematic reasons that we've discussed before. But they wanted to maintain that, like, it's okay with some things, and part of me thinks that making all these things into fae or aberrations or whatever is part of telling the story of why it's okay to just kill them indiscriminately, because they're not people and they don't have varied alignments. They're all this one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so stupid. I just have no patience for that at all. It's badly done here and doesn't map to a single published setting.
No.
The other thing that's a little weird, which this isn't like a big issue, but they're fae. But then they specifically talk about how there's hobgoblins in Acheron, a known place where fae show up all the time.
Right. Apparently. Ow.
Because they got to hang out with their boy McLubiat.
Yeah.
Big Mags, yeah.
This is one that really hit me, that it's very obvious that they want you to get that idea that they're not people.
Right. And fae aren't people is an idea that is going to completely fall apart the second you realize they've made a bunch of fae player species. It's not good. Are we good to move on? Because otherwise I can rant about like who gets to be people for a while. But I know. It's not going to get better.
So instead, let's talk about a monster that is definitely not people, the homunculus, which are formed out of clay by wizards to be basically their servants and apprentices and whatever. Or servants and familiars, that kind of thing. I've always found, like, I really am enjoying the artwork for the homunculus. I like the cute little purple and blue one in the middle there. I like the cute little one that looks like a red dragon.
It's a little look to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I like that, but it's always struck me as odd that these are creatures created from clay or whatever, but have never had sort of that, like the one in the middle one there that's green. That's sort of your classic homunculus artwork that we've seen from several editions now. But that
one looks almost exactly like the one from 2014.
Right. But that doesn't look like it was manufactured either. And then you get into
stitched with wings, guys. It's stitched with wings.
Right. And then you get into the D8 random table we have, which is all kinds of features, weird features that homunculus sometimes have. And I think we really only see one of those even remotely appearing, other than maybe I guess suggestive of the creator's appearance. Maybe if that one in the back was created by Batman, then that could be that could be that one. But I mean, the idea of the soft metal and delicate gears, or the sprouting flowers and wings, or the woven and patchwork, that they're woven in patchwork like a well-loved toy, underdeveloped with fleshy and beady eyes. Like, this is not even remotely close to the way any homunculus has ever been depicted, and I think it'd be more interesting if they were.
Yeah, or at least more examples of that.
Right.
Yep. I really like the table. I do wish the art sort of engaged with it, but yeah.
Or if they aren't even engaged with the fact that they're creations, that they look like they've been created.
Yeah. I care a lot about homunculi and the idea of them being cool. I would be happier if they were small or medium size and could be PCs, because I think that would be a really fun relationship, right? To run in a game. In the LARP that I ran, a homunculus basically meant flesh golem. You're playing Frankenstein's monster.
Sure.
And you worked with a wizard or rebelled against wizards, and you could have a lot of the kinds of homunculus features described in the D8 table. They were varied that way. It had it could graft other parts on, and it was pretty wild. But I guess I just based on the story they're telling with homunculi throughout D&D, I really wish they actually could help casters more.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't do much. What's that, Trace?
They can poison.
Yes.
They can poison.
They can.
That is an accurate statement.
Because that's
and yet with their 5 or now 4 hit points, I am not sure it is especially relevant.
I mean,
I'm really glad they adjusted them down to 4.
Yeah.
that actually
OP at 5
with everything.
Yeah.
They're CR2, so I'm pretty sure their primary, and they can fly, so their primary purpose is to go fetch a cup of tea.
They're CR what?
CR0, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Yeah. You said 2.
And what I was going to say is so the CR0 hit points 4, and then if you have a failure by 5 or more, you not only are poisoned, you have unconscious.
Yeah, but
yeah.
It's a pretty low DC. You better roll really crappy if you're going to fail by 5 or more.
It did notably, the DC did notably improve by 2 from 14 to 24. So that's meaningfully better. And I do quite like that. The duration situation changed. In 2014, the poisoned and unconscious condition lasts for D10 minutes rather than n minute, but most of the time that doesn't matter. But yeah, I would love to see more PCs get to interact with their own homunculus. I think it's neat. And there are spells for this that don't exactly engage with the creature stat block most of the time.
Yeah, I think there's a whole range of homunculus and familiar play that could be beefed up to make them feel more like something else.
Well, we could try not making owls just the best by a long shot. Because owls are mostly the best by a long shot.
It's also a little tricky as well, since a very clear and reasonable mechanical change happened to familiars along the way where it's not a big deal to lose one anymore. And that changes how important they are, how precious they are, because, oh no, the loss of a familiar doesn't matter. I can just bring him back, with a simple...
I didn't lose a point of constitution?
I mean, I don't know that it needs to be a point of constitution, but I feel like we went from, boy, losing your familiar sucks so much, it's never worth it to even have one, to now there's no importance placed on a familiar anyway. They're just a little extra mechanical doodad unless you really go out of your way to tell a story otherwise.
Don't overlook the destructive capacity of a fully armed and operational familiar that has received the Dragon Breath spell.
Sure, but that's a mechanical thing. I'm still not telling interesting stories with that.
I agree, but
Okay.
oh my god, there's a player in my game who does that as a consistent tactic for his owl, and it's just, holy god, there's so much murder. Like it's actually kind of his main damage output. He's otherwise a control caster.
So I did have a question though about the two separate failure, like the failure by 5 or more versus just regular failure.
Mhm.
How often does that happen in monsters, creatures?
It's not unheard of, but it's not commonplace either. Like it happens every now and then, so it doesn't stand out as something really strange. But it doesn't happen very often. Maybe half a dozen times total.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember. I'm sure maybe on some of the episodes I missed, but I didn't remember seeing that before when we were doing the review.
Do the petrifying ones that we've come up with so far have that?
I don't remember now.
I actually really love fail by 5 mechanics.
Yeah, I actually do like that.
No, I do too. I mean, it's one of their things that I like mechanically about Torg Eternity is that every roll is a succeed by 5, or succeed by 10. You can succeed, or you can have a good success or an outstanding success, and they have different mechanical effects depending on what you do. Even if it's just a little bit of bonus damage or whatever. But I like I find myself noticing that even at the table now when it doesn't matter. Like somebody will roll a hit and they'll say, "Does a such and such hit?" And I'll be like, that's a success by 5. That should mean something, but it doesn't.
Yeah. I mostly don't care about success by 5 margin. That's not as exciting to me overall. I do enjoy fail by 5 mechanics,
Sure.
both in PC and NPC hands a bit more. Just because of saving throws being sort of what they are.
The only time I tend to bring in success by 5 mechanics in D&D is on some skill checks. It'll be like, well, you can succeed.
I do agree with that.
And if you succeed by 5 or more, then you succeed more or whatever.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially anything knowledge based. For sure, you're going to get more exposition out of me if you really crush it on an exposition skill.
Yep.
For sure.
Oh, okay. Should we move on to hook horrors?
Let's do it.
I always have to be careful saying hook horror because otherwise I'm going to start calling them sex workers.
Yep. It's a risk.
Yep.
I feel like we should have Sam here for this too.
Well, I do feel like I, not that long ago, might have talked about hook horrors with Sam at some length.
I'm still catching up in the 12 days. I've got a bit of a backlog. So.
Yeah, lucky you.
Yep. Well, part of the issue is that I recently discovered Critical Lit, and so I've been going through the backlog of that as well. So.
Yeah, very good.
It's a really good podcast.
Yep.
Especially since I'm running Curse of Strahd right now.
Yep. So, hook horrors. These are underdark dwelling creatures. They have a vaguely humanoid shape, except instead of hands, they have big long hooks at the end of their arms. And they are these blind creatures that sort of like bats or whatever can see through echoes and what have you. So I like to imagine them constantly making little clicking sounds with their beak-like faces.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to point out, so many things got echolocation taken away. They can just see in some undescribed way. They still have echolocation, though. They specifically say they still have echolocation.
But not in the stat block.
Yeah, say not in the stat block.
No, because they did take away that you can cast silence to blind them. That's gone. But at least the description of echolocation is still a concept that exists somewhere in the D&D multiverse.
Yeah. I don't know. At my tables, you can still shut them down with a silent spell because that add some tactical interest to silence.
As is often, there was a lot of this that I had to do in 4th edition, where mechanically what should work or shouldn't work didn't make narrative sense, and you would just sort of, as a DM, hand wave it and make it work, which is fine. But there's a bit of that you now have to do with the 2024 rules, I think, because there's more things that don't make narrative sense by the rules as written, but you do anyway.
And like I would just sort of frame that as a good general principle of story first.
Yeah.
If the mechanics aren't supporting your story, that's cute, but you're here for the story. But don't screw players over.
Depends on the table, but I am too. Yes.
Yeah.
I still love that they continue to have their own language of hook horror.
I mean, that's fine, but also, what's the point in calling that out? I mean, just to say that they can communicate with each other and nothing else.
Yeah, but here's the first thing I thought of with that. If you can find somebody that can make clicking noises, that is like one of the best espionage things going.
Okay, so here's what we've
by having a language at all, tongues works.
Tongues works, and a lot of telepathy works. But also,
comprehend languages works.
Like, I could absolutely see a scenario like Jared is describing. Like, you've got somebody who knows the hook horror language. They don't have the beak, so they can't actually speak it. And now you've just created Chewbacca.
Sure.
I've got my buddy the hook horror that I can understand, but I can't speak. And maybe my hook horror buddy understands common but can't speak it. We've totally just created Underdark Chewbacca.
Sure.
And they're not inherently evil, so you could team up with them.
Yeah, and I mean, other than their senses, the big change in their stats really is just that the hook allows some force movement.
Yeah,
which makes it being a hook. That's a mechanical change that does tell the story of the hook a little bit more, right? You're hooking and pulling.
I like that. It's not a major change, but it is something that will maybe make a difference once in a while.
No, but and I don't think it is a major change in terms of tactics at the table, but it's a more interesting story that you can tell with hook horrors now. So, and other than that, AC and hit points don't change at all. Like, that's usually the first place. Well, hit points seems to be the first place that things get changed, but not for them. They were already good on hit points.
75 is very respectable for CR3.
Yeah. And when I build it as a species, so that I can have my NPC companion, Chewbacca, the hook horror, that's a good starting place. Shall we move on to Horn Devils?
Sure.
Why not?
Yep.
So, Horn Devils are not one that I can just scroll down to in both of my different tabs that I have the books open on, because this is our per episode reminder that the organization in the new book sucks.
We're totally going to let this go one of these days.
Yeah, on the last episode of the last episode of the Monster Manual, that'll be the last time I mention it.
Yep.
I'm not trying to make a big thing of it. It's just when it comes up.
Well, you're just recognizing exactly where your slow falls in the alphabet.
Yep. So we have the Horn Devils. Horn Devils are, of course, devils. They represent now hatred and subjugation. I like that most demons and devils have an alternative name because of that second edition era where they all had to be called something else. But now the Horn Devil actually has two different alternative names. The second edition name, Cornigons, and then they're also Malabranch.
Yep.
Well, and the thing is, they've had that name before, and what's really weird is, I forget which edition it was. There was a difference. There was an edition where, for some reason, they split Horn Devils from the Malbranche devil, and they were statting them as two separate things, even though they were very obviously very similar.
I feel like I might have seen that in third, but that might be making that up in my
It might
head.
have been.
That feels like the kind of thing that third edition would do.
It really is a very substantial change in their theme and lore, just in terms of personality, right? 2014, horned devils are lazy to the point of belligerence and reluctant to put themselves in harm's way. Moreover, they hate and fear any creature stronger than themselves. When they're sufficiently provoked or antagonized, the fury of these fiends can be terrifying. But mostly they want to sit on your couch and eat cheesy boofs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And now they're infernal warriors who exact the will of their generals and lead other devils into battle.
Right. They finally started to apply themselves and maybe got some ADHD meds, right?
I mean,
that's the thing. Even when it isn't like super problematic for the creature, I got so tired of rereading some of these 2014 ones and how like everything evil is cowardly and pathetic and terrible. It can kill your PCs, but it's really pathetic and worthless. And it's like, stop. You can tell a better story than this.
Right.
Here in the year of our Lord 2026, an enemy that is maximally weak and maximally strong at the same time is unwelcome, as that is the tool of the enemy, and we will not use it.
Yeah.
No, I like the new lore for the Horn Devil. I think the new lore for the Horn Devil also matches the look and the stat blocks a lot better too. I'm not opposed to the idea of bringing in your classic 7 deadly sins and gluttony being one of them or whatever, but Horn Devils being lazy and gluttonous or whatever doesn't match sort of the stats or the appearance or the way they've been used really in any incarnation that I've seen. So
yeah, I very much agree with that. Honestly, the new art slaps. It's really good. That is
like exactly what you think of when you're thinking of a general menacing devil.
Yeah, it looks like Tim Curry. From Legend, not from Rocky Horror, but
or Clue,
same dude though. We're pretty sure.
It's a little bit of Dave Grohl from the Tenacious D music video tribute. It's got a little bit of that look.
But seriously, I adore the new art. I didn't dislike the old art, except that the nose coloration is kind of clownish to me. But the new art rules. So in the stat block, they pick up 21 hit points, which is nice to have at level 11. It's fine. They pick up movement speed because they aren't lazy anymore, and the game really doesn't want to set anything at speeds less than 30 without an extremely good reason, which a large biped does not that doesn't reach that bar. See, Diabolical Restoration is of course a listed trait now. Devil Sight is moved into the senses rather than being a freestanding trait, which honestly fine. And then the fork is now a searing fork and picked up a couple of dice of fire damage, so that's pretty nice to have. Because honestly, the 15 damage on hit from a fork is a little underwhelming at CR11. Yeah. Pearl Flame is a lot stronger. It has almost doubled in damage output. So that's what we're saying is, boy, they were underpowered for their CR. Okay. But there's also a thing where just everything of about CR10 and up is gonna be stronger,
Yeah.
right? I think they had a recognition that the math just wasn't where it needed to be for all creatures of CR 10 plus. So this is doing exactly what I would expect to see. And then the tail attack deals an infernal wound that deals damage over time. This one is really the most similar to its previous state.
Although in the previous one, it looked like you could stack it.
Yeah, that kind of got confusing because they did.
Let's see.
And it's less
Yeah,
clear.
It escalates with each additional tail hit in 2014 for sure.
And did it change from a roll to hit to a saving throw?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It was it rolled to hit and then a save previously. That's a good catch. Yep.
And I think that's one of those weird math things that may have made it underpowered because they were thinking, oh, if it does hit and they do fail their save, that tail is deadly. So we have to make it kind of suck to start, just in case they make it to round 2 or 3 and start being really dangerous.
Yeah.
I will say,
I'm a firm believer
have
the devil should be dangerous, so that's okay.
Yeah. I have firsthand experience with this just from this Saturday because my players just fought one of these. And the bard was terrified because it dropped her 2-0 and she had an infernal wound, which means she would have been taking a death save every time when her turn started. It's the same person I just killed her last character, so we kind of didn't want to see that happen again. Healing word is your friend.
Well, healing word is incredibly boss in 2014 or 2024.
Yeah, and we just started using the 2024 spell definitions, so it was a much better healing word than it was before.
Yeah. So all in all, I like this stat block, the new stat block, a lot more. The only thing I would do in using it in my 2014 games is to bring back magic to hit. In the bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage resistance from non-magical weapons that aren't silvered, because I really like silver is useful in a weapon, cold iron or adamantium or whatever is useful in a weapon.
Right.
Yeah, and I have that burned into my brain from previous editions that silver hurts devils, cold iron hurts demons. And it's
there is a part of me that has always liked the idea of a campaign where the heroes spend a bunch of time doing research of what they might run into and preparing for it by getting the right weapons and whatever. That said, that's never played out in a fun way in my games, almost ever.
So I think I don't love the sort of golf bag of swords.
No.
This looks like a cold iron, sir. Sense of multiple weapon types. What I do enjoy with that is as a treasure item, a PC gains a silver or silvered sword, sort of like the greater silver sword that my Githyanki Hexblade has.
Right.
And so they're using that weapon all the time, but sometimes it rules.
Right.
So for me, I want silver to still matter after the weapon is magic.
Does the greater silver sword actually count as silver?
It says it in the name, dude. But in 2024, it doesn't matter. That's not a thing anymore.
I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I've always considered silver sword to be a description of its color more than of its makeup, because weird astral malleable metal stuff. But
I mean, if it can cut an astral cord,
it's definitely magical.
Right, astral cords are described as being cuttable by silver swords, which I assume are swords made of silver, not this sword looks silver because the Githyanki made it.
Oh, I
Right.
I always assumed that it meant the proper like Githyanki style sword, not
That's
just
not what the rules usually say.
Okay.
Like, it will call out Githyanki can cut your astral cord with their silver sword
Mm-hmm.
because that's an active part, a danger and part of being in the astral, and a reason to put some respect on those Githyanki knights.
Right.
But like, if you bring a silver sword with you, I guess you can do it too.
Shall we talk about Hydras now?
Hail
Yeah.
Hydra.
Hail Hydra.
So Hydras are the classic from Greek mythology in many ways. They are the multi-headed serpent, dragon, reptile creatures that lounge around in what are they, in swamps and stuff? Water dwellers, wetlands and bogs and all that kind of stuff. And that when you cut off their heads, they grow new heads.
Definitely looks like one of the wilder stat blocks. Like the actual mechanics for this are pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually expecting them to have done something less like it used to be, and no.
That's a pretty important part of the core fiction and fun of a Hydra.
Oh, yeah.
That's the fun thing. So I did just field a Hydra in my campaign.
Mhm.
The PCs talked to its handler instead of fighting the Hydra.
I would also like
my players
to-
killed the Hydra in Phandelver and below. So
Nice.
I did that recently.
I would like to commend the 2024 Monster Manual by not doing the same incredibly annoying thing that they did in the 2014 one, because the reason the Hydra in Greek mythology is called a Lernaean Hydra is because of where the Hydra lived. In the 2014 Monster Manual, they made up a rival dragon god named Lernea that Tiamat killed, and that's where Hydras came from. You don't need to do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's no.
My recollection is, was it second edition? There was both a Hydra and a Lernian Hydra, and only the Lernian Hydra regrew heads, and the other one you could just slowly kill off.
No, it was something else that they did. It wasn't they all got their heads back, but I can't remember what the
Lernaean Hydra got two heads in place of one.
That's what it was.
As opposed to just a regen mechanic. So they you would cut them back like a rose bush, and that sure.
So
the
2014 and 2024
does the two.
So the 2014 definitely has 24 also has when you cut one head off, two heads grow in its place, and it regains hit points. In 2024, it regains more hit points than before.
It regains 20 hit points, and it used to regain 10.
That's right.
Tracy, what were you going to say?
Sorry, Tracy.
So with this, since I have you all here, do you go by the hit points or the heads, or is it whichever happens first?
Yes, whichever happens first. If they cut all the heads off, then they've defeated the monster. If they reduce it to 0 hit points, then they've defeated the monster.
Yeah, it has two different loss conditions.
Yeah, and the way you cut off the head, we talked about how it hasn't changed, but it starts with 5 heads, and then if it takes 25 points of damage or more in one turn, then one of the heads dies as opposed to getting chopped off. But historically, that's meant getting the head cut off.
Right, but if you do that, but don't kill it during that round or whatever, it will regrow 2 for each one that was killed.
Yes.
Yep. And it regains 20 hit points. However much you did, it regains 20 hit points.
Which begs the question, why does it have 5? Why do all Hydras start with 5 heads at the beginning of a combat?
Well,
maybe it
says
can
that
only
it doesn't-
support 5.
Well,
Sorry, Tracy.
and it says that some of them in the not in the stat block. I think it's in the text. It says that some of them have more than that.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I was saying because
Yeah, in other editions, they did have like ones that were like 5-headed, 7-headed. But
Yep. And narratively, that would make sense. 5 heads, like what? Clearly, it can in the short term support more than 5 heads because if you cut one off and it regrows 2, now it has 6 heads, and the monster keeps functioning. I don't know, unless we're gonna create some sort of weird ecological system for the hydras, and that like after the fight's over, it like devours one of its own heads in order to get itself down to 5 because that's what the body can support long term or something.
Yeah,
like a
and
house plant that has too many flowers and you got to prune them.
and it's not different from the past, but fire damage is the only thing that can make it so it doesn't grow it back.
Yep, which has been true since was it Hercules fought the Hydra
Yep.
back in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
So, other than
So
that,
this feels like
oh, go ahead.
mainly for new players, right?
Well, so like the head mechanic is a weird complexity that is evocative for this creature, but other than the head, the growing back thing and whatever, like it's actually a pretty straightforward monster to run. It has one kind of attack. It just keeps biting based on the number of heads.
Yep.
So it's actually like when I ran it, a month or two ago in my campaign, like it was actually a pretty simple monster to run. I just had a little piece of scrap paper and I made 5 check boxes, and as necessary, I crossed them off or added more to keep track of the number of heads, and that was good. It's interesting to me as well that the Hydra loses a head when it takes 5 or more damage in a single turn, because that means it can never lose more than 1 head per turn.
Right, but not
Yeah.
per round.
Oh, that's
Just for
turn.
each individual character's turn.
Yeah.
So if he's facing a party of 4,
it could lose
it's
4
basically
heads.
impossible to take it out before it gets another turn and regrows 2 heads. If he's facing a party of 5, much higher chances
Right.
of losing all 5 heads before it regrows 2.
Yep.
And Jeff, I would just like to say you were actually correct. My brain has atrophied over the decades. They did use in 2nd edition, Hydras were just Hydras. They were just multi-headed things, and the
Okay.
Lernaean Hydra was the only one that
That's what I
regrew
thought.
heads.
That's what I recalled. Okay. So anything else about Hydras? Are we going to actually move on to another letter?
Possibly.
But I like the Hydra layer D4 table. That's doing good work for me.
Oh, also for some weird reason, and they've done this with with the other multiple headed things that we saw, there's no like it can't be put to sleep because one of its heads is always awake.
Oh, sure.
I'm not sure why they did that, but
well, it has immunity to unconscious, so kinda.
yeah, I know. It's just yeah.
Like it picked up a ton of immunities that are all attempting to express that, right? Because it is in a sense 5 different creatures. It is now immune to blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, unconscious, which is impressive. But it isn't multiple creatures for the purposes of hold monster.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Ice Devils?
Sure.
All right. So Ice Devils, the devils of antipathy and intellectual arrogance. I don't remember that being a thing for them in previous editions, the intellectual arrogance. They were always sort of these insectoid devils that hang out on the ice. Thus the name.
It really doesn't work very hard to emphasize sort of personality in 2014. Talks about where they're found, the cold layers of Stygia in Kenya. And their commanders, they torment lesser devils as an outlet for their anger and resentment. So they're angry and resentful, sure. They're covetous. They're just devils, guys. And they're real go-getters. They're company men. Ice devils work ceaselessly toward promotion, slaughtering the enemies of the nine hells and claiming as many souls as they can for the archdevil masters. So they are real career-motivated gals. That's what I see.
Whereas 2024 version, they are heartless strategists. They indulge in their own schemes and tempt mortals to forsake their empathy and their social connections. And
they're Twitter reply guys. Yeah,
right. And I particularly like that. They're 2014. There's a tendency that every devil is either a minion that serves other devils or a general. And there's really not any, like, there's an implied in between, because we can look at sort of the hierarchy of devils and whatever, but like, it means you got a bunch of generals in your army. If you got a horn devil and an ice devil, there's two generals. Which one is going to be on top or whatever?
Well, I mean, every military has multiple officer ranks.
Sure. But in this one, the only ranks are minion and general in 2014.
I know what you're saying, because like in some editions they would call out that like horn devils are shock troops that specifically do this thing.
Sure.
So that it's not just saying that they are minions. They have a particular function in the war machine that is the blood war.
But I like that in 2024 they don't call them out as generals. They call them the strategists of Hell's armies, and they occasionally, because of their martial prowess, serve as guardians or what have you. Like this is a more evocative story to tell of where something fits into the larger sort of structure of Hell. And I also enjoy the pull-out quote from Tasha, who thinks it's rather funny that every ice devil thinks that they're smarter than you, and she likes to prove them wrong because she thinks it's funny.
I swear I read that, and I'm thinking the next time I have an ice devil, I have to have it go, well, actually.
Yeah.
Push up its glasses. Yep.
Yeah, I'm way too online to read this and not make jokes about it. So one interesting thing is that pretty pointedly, the Ice Devil spear was something like an item that had its own reality independent from the Ice Devil in 2014, but there's no gear line now.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have a spear, but you can't have it. Shut up.
Yeah.
But it's also not an optional part of the stat block anymore. In 2014,
right,
the ice spear was a variant of Ice Devil, which is interesting because ice devils are almost always depicted with their weapons. But then the stat block just has them, the default stat block has them doing a bite, claw, and a tail attack.
Yep.
I mean, it's the same thing they did with the Arenyes, though, because that used to be the rope used to be a separate thing that some had that was a separate item, and now it's just part of the stat block. What's interesting to me, though, is that a lot of creatures that they've reworked in here, they make sure that they have a melee attack and a ranged attack.
Mm-hmm.
For the Ice Devil, it's a spear, so they're just assuming that it's the melee or the ranged attack. But does that mean the spear teleports back to them? Does it mean they have multiple spears?
It explicitly says in the stat block, the spear magically returns to the devil's hand immediately after the ranged attack.
Oh, I see that. Okay. Yep. Hit or miss right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I appreciate that. I was kind of glad that they explained that then, because I was like, do they just have like a bunch of these things strapped to their back, or what are they doing here? They definitely got a good chunk more hit points. They went from 180 to 228.
Oh yeah.
Um, they do of course lose the bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing because nothing has bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing resistance unless it's magical anymore. So that's gone.
They did lose their claw and bite attacks, but since they all have spears now, maybe that's not as important.
Well, I mean, that's another one of those things that I think is a stat block saver, not a logic thing, because when I look at that thing, it definitely has claw and bite attacks. It's fine. I'll use the spear if he's got it, but
Right.
Right. It's saving column inches and making sure you don't use a suboptimal attack.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, the biggest saving of column inches in the world, though, is turning Wall of Ice into
Yeah.
Ice Wall, the Wall of Ice spell, featuring Wall of Ice and
Right.
Puddle
Yeah.
of Mud, or whatever we're doing here.
As opposed to what it was before, which was a 3-paragraph entry that describing what a wall of ice does. Which it's interesting. It's interesting that it was previously called Wall of Ice, and they didn't just use the Wall of Ice spell, but now they call it Ice Wall, but it does use the Wall of Ice spell.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I mean, there are some places here where I like, especially with some of the things in the dragon stat block, where it's like, no, don't replace that with a spell. Here, yeah, why not? That.
Yeah.
I do want to say, though, I do kind of miss that in these devil stat blocks, they have senses unimpeded by magical darkness. I just like the words devil sight being associated with devils a lot more than just, yeah, here's the thing.
Yep.
And I continue to like the diabolical restoration thing has always sort of been part of the lore of demons and devils. I don't hate that it's part of the stat block now. It's not taking up a lot of column space. It's literally 2 lines. But, regardless of whether it's in the stat block or not, that's how my demons and devils have always worked. And probably always will. So, speaking of demons and devils, should we move on to the imp?
Do it.
All right. So the imp is your small little it's your spy / familiar version of a devil. Like if you've made a deal with the devil to get your warlock powers and you have a familiar, imp is one that makes a lot of sense, right? They're little CR1 creatures that fly around with their scorpion tails. They can do all kinds of useful things like turning invisible and shape-shifting to look like ravens or spiders. Yeah, and they're what are they? The devil of pettiness and suspicion.
They're a rare case in 2024 of a monster that isn't part of an action scene, doesn't have a background.
Mm-hmm.
They're just on a page background. And the imp we see here is pretty recognizably just the same imp in a slightly different pose.
Yeah, turned slightly sideways.
Like the facial features are remarkably the same.
Yep. It's pretty much the same artwork.
I mean, that said, I like the artwork. It's good.
It works.
Yeah.
Did they double their hit points? They did. They doubled their hit points.
Yep.
They went
Double
from
plus
10
one.
You're not going to
10
thrash it with
21,
one attack anymore.
right? Which is nice. You want to even at a CR1, you want your creatures to stick around a little bit longer.
Yep.
So,
I mean, this really is very often one of the first fiends you're going to encounter, right along with lemures,
yeah.
right? So being able to take a second hit just means you have a little more encounter with what is going to be the most powerful thing in that encounter.
I do like taking the trait of being able to shapeshift, which says that they can change shape as an action, and putting it under actions. I like it organizing the way they've organized things like that in this version.
But what's interesting to me is their shapeshift just says it gets a different movement rate, but it still has the same stats. They could have done that for a lot of these other things where they said it's like the shapeshift spell except way worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you wouldn't have weird things like, can you shapeshift into an archmage because it's a humanoid? You know, you would eliminate that if you just said, okay, you have the same stats, you just look like this now.
Right. All right. Do we have anything else to say on imps?
Checking their damage and such, it is a little bit lowered, right? Because
Yeah,
they
don't have
they lose a die of poison damage.
Yeah, you don't have the
but
save
there's no
kicker.
save, right? So it's much more consistent. Yeah, so it's going to play a little faster, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I did really like that it could use its poison bite in any beast form. That's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not. It looks like they may have lost that. It's a little unclear.
Yeah, it doesn't specifically call it out.
It's just they don't explain what the sting would be in a rat form.
The rat's tail just comes up and stings.
Sure. I mean,
and then you go, what the hell kind of rat is that?
Yeah. I don't necessarily dislike that, but it's certainly a different sense of weirdness level than, oh, it just says poison bite. Oh, it's an imp. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the extra hit points do go a long way to just making this a little bit more fun.
Oh, and I guess that's the obvious thing there that we should have picked up on. It's CR1 and got a big jump in hit points because even the CR1 imp had the resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing.
A resistance that was actually going to play at CR1.
That's what I was going to say. At CR1, that actually matters.
Yep.
So the next entry is interesting to me because they've changed the lore here a good amount. If I recall. So we're talking about the incubus next. The incubus used to just be that there was a succubus, and the incubus was the male version of a succubus. That does not seem to be the case anymore. Now they've got incubus as a total separate stat block, and they've got a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on, and that the incubus can, after a long rest, change into a succubus, and then the succubus can do the same thing, changing back into an incubus.
Which makes it even weirder that these two stat blocks are half a book apart.
Yeah.
Yes. It really does. But it's like at first I was like, so did they just completely change the lore of the succubus and now we have this dream, what do they call it? Life leeching dream stalker is the tagline for them. But no, they still have the succubus that gets you with sexuality and whatever. But succubus is just a different creature, and a succubus could be male or female. An incubus can also be male or female. They're just kind of different forms of the same creature. And so our incubus stat block here really doesn't have a 2014 comparison, or honestly, probably comparison in any edition, because so far as I know, this is the first time they've done it this way.
Yeah, I believe that's the first time I can think of. I mean, part of this goes back to like the succubus in D&D takes like a certain subset of traits associated with seduction demons, and that's what they have. This is basically just looking at some of those same myths and pulling out stuff they didn't use for the succubus over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's a guy who wakes you up while you're sleeping and bothers you in, camp scenes, sure. But, the core thing that they're doing is trying to get rid of like gendered monsters
Sure.
as such.
But this is a significant. I don't know that I dislike the lore that this implies, but this is a very different type of creature than what we had before.
Right. I have a lot of patience for like nightmare monsters as a general rule.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I do agree that this is just a new thing because they created a space they had to fill.
It is interesting. Like if there was ever going to be a time that a creature should be incorporeal and take less damage because of it and whatever, it feels like this nightmare creature that haunts you in your dreams would fit into that well.
Sure.
But that's not
I do think
what we have.
Restless Touch is interesting, but it seemed like it would make more sense if it was long rests because you're having a hard time getting any benefit from sleeping. And instead you can't take naps.
Right? Curse for 24 hours and you can't benefit from short rest anymore. Well, the trouble is if you take away their ability to benefit from a long rest, you can't haunt them for very long before they die from picking up levels of exhaustion.
Well, if it only lasts for 24 hours, you're not denied a long rest for that long.
Yeah, it's more or less just like giving them the advantage to hunt you down and wear you down in your dreams if it were a long rest.
But I'm thinking of like the classic vampire story or Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever that haunts you every night over and over and over again. If this thing haunts you for a week and a half, it kills you. Which I know maybe that fits in the horror movie trope pretty well, but that's pretty. That could be pretty deadly.
Yeah, I think that your goal, if you're being hunted that way, is to find one of the different kinds of places where it can't haunt you, right?
Right.
Whether that is a private sanctum spell or, some place that has protection from evil and good or whatever.
And I was going to say, this would work a lot better if it had the ability to like disappear into the ether or had invisibility or something. And then I looked at its spell list and saw it has etherealness.
Yeah, it's got etherealness.
Etherealness at will, and etherealness is not a concentration spell, and it lasts for 8 hours. So it can just disappear into the ethereal plane.
Nightmare is kind of a tricky thing because it doesn't work until the target has 20 hit points or fewer, and it's also a recharge 6. That feels like it's a double whammy, making it a little less effective. But I was just going to say, I just had a very interesting idea that I won't elaborate on what goes on in the movie, but you could do a really interesting version of like the movie It Follows and the creature in that by having the first part of the storyline involve a succubus and the second part of the storyline involve an incubus. And just have it being that thing that keeps, behind you in your peripheral vision forever.
Well, and there could be a lot of fun with the idea of like they're being hunted and haunted by the incubus at night, and during the day they're maybe they're otherwise having conversations with the succubus, not realizing it's the same creature.
Yeah, having the succubus offer to protect you, so that you go someplace the incubus can get you is a pretty great good cop bad cop. Jared, I did want to say about the nightmare bonus action. There's the otherwise at the bottom. So if you don't meet the hit point threshold requirement, if you have too many hit points, it just deals 48 damage to you.
Yeah, and that is a lot.
For a bonus action, it's great.
Yeah, that's pretty good for a bonus action.
That is true.
The other thing that like this, if you looking at the stat block and picking it apart like this, I'm picking up the story from the mechanics that work really well. The one thing that would make it maybe interesting, although screw up the numbers, the math on it a little bit, they're called a life leeching dreamstalker. I wish their their restless touch had a little bit of that implied life leeching, that it's drawing energy out of you and healing a little bit here and there as a result, because that would just be evocative of that story of what they are.
I agree with that. I would not be sorry to see something like that, or to give them vampiric touches as well.
Yeah.
Although,
I mean, they actually, it's weird because it's like they give that specifically to the succubus, but it's still part of the narration of what they're saying the incubus does.
Right. What did you say, Tracy?
well, in the restless touch for the incubus, it can't have a benefit from finishing a short rest, which would mean it can't heal.
On a short
And
rest. It can't on a long rest.
Yeah.
So you can't regain hit points from hit dice. You can't regain warlock spell slots. You can't regain battlemaster combat superiority dice. There's a pretty good amount of stuff that a lot of builds are going to have now that comes back on short rest.
Although some builds are going to just shrug that off and say, well, that sucks, but I'll be fine.
Yes, but not very many at this point. It's mostly rogues. And notably,
it's really going to make your warlock and your monk sad. Yeah,
Yep.
Your monk's going to be real sad.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. We are at an hour and 20 minutes of recording, and we are about to hit the first creature under the eyes that were under the eyes in the last book. The 2014 Monster Manual eyes started with Intellect Devourer. That's where we will be next. So I think that's a good place to stop and pick up with the Intellect Devourer next time.
I do just want to say I would characterize the Intellect Devourer as being behind the eyes rather than under the eyes.
Sure.
Goodness.
I can accept that. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap that up. We want to say thank you to Jared. Where can they go if they want to find more Jared?
Well, you can find my old stuff at Gnome Stew and whatdoiknowjr.com. I might write for either of those at some point again in the future. Who knows? And also, you can hear me and my friend Ange talk about D&D at Thaco with Advantage. And
Brandis, where can people go to find more Brandis?
You can find me on the Tome Show Discord. You can find me on Blue Sky at brandisstoddard.bsky.social. My personal blog is brandisstoddard.com, and my Patreon is Brandis Stoddard.
There you go. I also want to thank everybody who supports this show by being patrons at patreon.com/The Tome Show. Your support helps me pay the bills and helps make the show possible. Thanks goes out to our higher tier supporters, Doug Palmer, Hyperlexic, Merrick Blackman, and Michael Harrison. For as little as $1 a month, you can help make the show great. And thanks to all of our patrons for your support.
And if you'd like to contact us, you can send email, thetomeshow@gmail.com. You can find us on social medias. I am Sarah Dark Magic, that's Sarah with an H, and Jeff is Squatch, SQUACH.
All right, and that is the end of episode 395, where we harangued a heap of hairy humanoids all the way to Hades, as we discuss the Monster Manual for the 18th time in this episode of
The Tome.
I'm on the wall.